Just a quick heads up, this week's episode is on the topic of sexual assault. Hey everyone, Harris O'Malley from NerdLove.com. And this week, I want to talk about something that's been in the news a lot lately. Now, like I've said in previous episodes, I don't usually talk about current events. I usually like saving that for the site. But every once in a while, a story will come up that I feel is really important to talk about. Especially this one. On June 26, Expendables and Brooklyn Nine-Nine star Terry Crews testified before Congress in support of the Survivors of Sexual Assault Bill of Rights. As part of his advocacy for survivors of rape and sexual assault, Crews talked about his own experience of having been the victim of sexual violence. In 2016, Terry Crews and his wife attended a party in Hollywood where they encountered Adam Bennett, a high-powered member of the William Morris Talent Agency and the agent of such celebrities as Sylvester Stallone and Eddie Murphy and Adam Sandler. Bennett, according to Crews, was staring at him and making crude sexual gestures with his tongue, and after several minutes of this, came over. Crews says that he reached out to shake Bennett's hand, but Bennett instead allegedly grabbed Terry by the crotch, repeatedly.
And he's like, and he's still licking his tongue out and all this stuff, and I go, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then he comes back again. And he just won't stop. And then I really got forceful, pushed him back. He bumps into all the other party goers, the whole thing, and he starts giggling and laughing.
After the allegations against Harvey Weinstein came to light, Crews chose to stand up and speak out about his own assault, in part to support other victims of sexual assault, but also to break the silence that so many men suffer under. Because Terry Crews is hardly the only man in Hollywood who have been sexually assaulted. James Van Der Beek, Anthony Edwards, and Brendan Fraser have all come forward to talk about having been the victims of sexual abuse, sexual molestation, and assault. And all of them have talked about the shame and the stigma that comes not just with being the victim of a sex crime, but being the male victim of sexual assault. And it's not surprising that they've been silent. The myth is that men don't get raped, or at least not outside of prison. But in reality, according to the Justice Department, 10% of survivors of rape or sexual assault are men. 16% of boys experience sexual abuse by the age of 18, and according to the Pentagon, 38 male active service members are sexually assaulted daily. And in all likelihood, the numbers are probably higher. In fact, they're probably much higher. Men report having been assaulted or raped at lower levels than women do, so it's almost impossible to know what the real numbers are. And really, it's not surprising that men are reluctant to report having been raped. We only have to look to the responses to Terry Crews to see why. Even in the aftermath of his testimony before the Senate, the silence from other men in support of him has been deafening. In fact, what we have heard has mostly been laughter and insults. In one famous example, 50 Cent posted images of Terry on his Instagram, insinuating that Terry Crews was weak and that he would never have gotten assaulted because he would have killed the guy. The insults from 50 Cent are actually fairly typical for what male survivors of sexual assault experience when they come forward. Men rarely report having been raped or having been assaulted because, honestly, they have a hard time finding anyone who will take them seriously. Few come forward, and even fewer see justice done because when men report having been raped, having been assaulted, or having been abused, they're met with disbelief at best, or mockery at worst. This is in no small part because of how we view masculinity and maleness. We think of rape, sexual assault, and abuse, emotional and physical, as things that don't happen to real men. To be a victim of sexual violence is to be almost literally emasculated, a description that Terry Crews and other survivors have used. In the eyes of many, including the survivors themselves, a male victim of sexual abuse is seen as less of a man. Men are supposed to be too tough or too strong to let this happen. Men aren't supposed to be overpowered or intimidated into giving in, whether the perpetrator is a man or a woman. If someone is able to assault you, abuse you, rape you, then you must not have been strong enough to prevent it. And so survivors are then forced to justify their own reaction to their own assault. Why didn't you fight? Why didn't you fight harder? Why didn't you push them away? Why didn't you scream? Why didn't you press charges? Why didn't you kill them? And that's assuming that you can find someone who is willing to take it seriously, or to call it assault or rape in the first place. Often men who come forward to say that they've been assaulted are told that it was just horseplay, that it was just a joke, or not that big of a deal. For example, one of the most infamous cases in comics publishing was editor Scott Alley, who earned the nickname Bitey the Clown. His propensity for getting drunk and groping people, licking them, and biting them was so infamous that comic publishers used to joke about it in their PR material. We normalize and justify sexual violence against men all the time. For example, fraternities, sports teams, military organizations, and other groups use sexual assault and violence as hazing rituals, and men who object or who are traumatized by it are told that it's not that big of a deal. They're weak. They should be able to handle it. Everybody else was able to go through it and they're not complaining, so why are you being such a little pussy? As though I went through this so you have to is a great reason to keep doing it. And that's when the perpetrators are men. When it's a woman, the story changes entirely. Men who are assaulted or raped by women have a hard time finding anyone willing to call it rape, or even a crime in the first place. When we see stories in the news about young boys who have been raped by female teachers or babysitters or other women in their lives, there are always men who fall all over themselves to proclaim how lucky that boy was, because they would have loved to have had some older woman sleep with him when they were his age. But the fact is, the fantasy of what you want and the reality of it are two very different things. Kids want shit all the time that they think that they're ready for, but in actuality, they are not even vaguely prepared to handle. It's very tempting to have some porn-inspired vision of a stepmother or a teacher who looks like Dana Darmond or Ava Adams seducing some young, inexperienced, but eager stud, or that at 13, 14, 15, you're just so damn manly that you're already a lady killer, and even older women just have to have themselves a taste.
Entice it, you fantasize about what it would be like to be with that young boy on the verge of manhood. Because it helps you stay feeling attractive. Makes the aging process a little more bearable. Well, let me tell you something, you blew it, lady. Because I'm the best sex you'll never have.
You're wrong about one thing, Pacey. You're not a boy.
But what makes that fantasy appealing is that you have total control. Everything plays out exactly as you want it to. The reality of it, on the other hand, is an older woman abusing the power and control that she has over a much younger boy. A boy who doesn't know what he's getting into and certainly isn't able to handle it. Even when it's not a young boy being abused by an older woman, the idea of whether a woman can rape a man is one that provokes doubt and laughter and insult. It falls to the classic idea of, oh, he must want it. In fact, a man who reports that he was raped by a woman finds himself under question. What? We're supposed to believe that some woman was able to force you to fuck her? What, she just made your dick get hard? Never mind the fact that not every sexual assault or rape involves penetration or being forced to penetrate. And for that matter, never mind the fact that the body responds to trauma and fear in many different ways, including erections and even orgasm, a fact that has caused many survivors, men and women both, to question what that meant and what actually happened to them. It doesn't help that we constantly reinforce the idea that a man being sexually assaulted is no big deal. There are literally hundreds of movies and TV shows that portray sexual assault of a man as a punchline, whether it is jokes about prison rape, penetration as revenge or punishment, or jokes about women raping men. Which brings us back to Terry Crews. Part of what's so important about his willingness to speak up openly and honestly about what happened to him and how it affected him is that he is destroying the myths that surround male sexual assault. And in doing so, he's highlighting how we as men fail survivors, especially male survivors. Part of what motivates 50 Cent and other men who mock Terry Crews, or for that matter, who mock other male survivors of sexual violence, is a desire to reaffirm their own masculinity, to put forth a manhood so potent and virile that it makes them invulnerable. This could never happen to me because I'm too rough and tough. Rawr! It's a way of reaffirming their own masculine credentials and identity by attacking somebody else's. Crews froze up when somebody grabbed his junk instead of putting him through a wall because he's weak and timid and not a real man. It's the same victim-blaming bullshit that women go through, except this has the extra tinge of, well, this would never have happened to me because I'm a real man and not a prissy little bitch. But the truth is, Terry Crews puts light to the myth that rape only happens to the weak, or that sexual assault is about sex. It's not. It's about power and dominance and having power over somebody else. This is why gay men or men in the military are most often raped by straight men. It is a way of dominating and degrading someone, of forcing them into what others see as a feminine position. In a world of hypermasculine, toxic ideals, to be made feminine is to be made lesser. Vennett's allegedly grabbing Crews's crotch wasn't about sex. It was about power. It was about him having the power to go up to someone, a 6'4" former linebacker who looked like he's carved out of stone and abs, and say, "Look what I can do to you," and you have to stand there and take it. And yeah, let's say that Crews pounded him into hamburger. What do you think happens next when somebody calls the cops about the fact that a tall, imposing black man just punched out a much smaller white man? Even if Crews didn't go to jail, his life and his career would be over. Vennett is an incredibly powerful figure in Hollywood, and Crews beating him down, justified or not, would follow him for the rest of his life. There would not be a single producer willing to work with him, and Vennett could easily blackball him out of the industry by threatening to withhold all of his clients from any studio or any production house that ever hired him. But the fact that Crews held back is a greater testimony to his strength than if he had pounded Vennett into hamburger, and his willingness to speak up is a greater testimony to his courage than anything he could have done in the moment. Being open about being the victim of sexual violence comes with a stigma that is very hard to escape. And the silence from other men in support of him, instead of mocking him, is telling indeed. Even the so-called advocates of men's interests are incredibly quiet when it comes to supporting Terry Crews, when they're not insulting him or making fun of him instead. They're willing to chase down the myth of false rape claims, but when it comes to supporting a man who has been the victim of sexual assault, their silence is deafening. And the eagerness that so many men display in performative insults and mockery is just testimony to their own weakness and their own insecurity in their masculinity. It's easy to try to build up your manhood by tearing down somebody else's. It is far harder to stand up and speak out, especially when there are significant consequences for doing so. And Crews is facing consequences beyond the mockery of the insults. He's become a polarizing, divisive figure in Hollywood, and many people are unwilling to work with him now. In fact, he has lost work, including leaving the cast of The Expendables, because producers keep pressuring him to just let this all go. But none of this has stopped Terry Crews from speaking openly, or for that matter, for being a passionate advocate for other survivors, or for a more positive form of masculinity. And in doing so, he's blazing a trail that shows us how we should be supporting other victims of sexual assault and rape. He's challenging the stigma and the narrative of what a survivor of sexual violence looks like and what it means to have been assaulted. He is fighting for the support that survivors need and showing us all what it means to be a powerful ally for those who've been hurt. And that takes true strength. Hey, thanks for checking out my latest video. So I'm not going to do my usual share your comments in the thoughts below thing. Instead, if you're the survivor of sexual assault or rape and you need help or you need to talk to somebody, then call the National Sexual Assault Hotline. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's completely anonymous. They have trained advocates who are there to listen to you, to talk with you about what happened, to help you find resources that you need, and to even walk you through what some of your options are. There's an online chat function if you prefer that, and they have a comprehensive list of resources for help on their website. I've linked to that in the show notes below. If you do have a short dating question or a topic you'd like to hear more about on here, then you can hit me up and send that to me at doc@drnerdlove.com for YouTube in the subject header. Meanwhile, thanks to everybody who has been pre-ordering or really excited about my new book, I Got Her Number, Now What? I just got the review copy. It looks awesome. I can't wait for you guys to get this in your hands. It's coming out on July 24th. It's available for pre-order on Amazon, so click the links below, get yourself a copy, and be ready to turn your phone into a date-getting machine and taking your text game to the next level. And while you're there, check out some of my other books. And if you do me a huge favor, leave a review on Amazon or Goodreads. It's a huge help. Now, I know this was a heavier topic than normal, but if you dug the video, then hit that thumbs up, let me know. Be sure to share it with all of your friends. If you're really enjoying the series, if you are finding that you're getting a lot out of it and it's really helping you, then consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron at patreon.com/drnerdlove. Even $1 is a huge help. And honestly, I can't do this without the support of my patrons, so thank you all so very much. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at @drnerdlove. You can join the Facebook page at facebook.com/drnerdlove. And as always, hit that logo to subscribe, check out my other videos, and I will be back with you next time with more about love, sex, and dating. Later.